The sponsor of this episode is Chadwell Supply, an OG in the multifamily industry. Chadwell is the largest privately owned maintenance and repair supplier, and they deliver orders the next day from local warehouses across the United States. To find out how Chadwell Supply will make your day better, visit www.chadwellsupply.com/difference.
Hello, welcome to the Rooms with Ronald podcast, brought to you by the Multifamily Media Network. I'm your host, Ronald Harrington. In 2023, I set an intention to shop 100 apartment communities to see how leasing was evolving around the country. Rooms with Ronald was born out of that experience. In this series, I share my experiences and engage in meaningful conversations with other professionals in the industry as we discuss all things related to leasing and marketing. Join in as we expand the Rooms with Ronald experiment. Welcome to another episode of Rooms with Ronald. I'm your host, Ronald Harrington, and in this podcast, we talk all things leasing and marketing. And boy, do we have a show for you today. I am joined by Brittany Pagans, who is a customer success manager for NurtureBoss. Brittany, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I am excited for what we're going to do today. So why don't you let the listeners know what we're about to do before we dive in?
Okay. The name of this podcast, or the theme at least, is Flourishing in Multifamily. And so I've been watching some of your videos, and because I like to do things a little bit differently, we're going to actually do a plant demonstration or a gardening demonstration. So this should be fun.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Music, this might be the part of the episode where you want to pause and jump over to YouTube and watch this, because Brittany, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Like, I can't keep anything alive. I can't even keep like a man alive. So this is going to be super interesting to see me actually try to plant something and go from there.
Same. So we're in this together.
We're always in this together. So, well, this is going to be fun. I've not done anything like this on an episode before, where we just kind of demonstrate as we go. So since we're flourishing in multifamily, we're going to be talking about the prospect journey and into the resident journey as well, and how we can correlate that gardening into multifamily just to present leasing in a different way. So Brittany, where do we start?
All right. So, of course, the first part of gardening, or the first step in flourishing in multifamily, would be preparing your soil. So, for your future blooming flower, right? I'd encourage on-site teams to consider this as the first vital step in the lease cycle for prospects. So something more to think about is you wouldn't plant seeds in any type of soil, right? You'll want to consider what soil is best for your environment, the location, and what's the best soil for the type of plant or flower, so the demographic. We have these nice compostable containers and soil disc. Never used these before, but apparently we just add water to this. So let's prepare our soil as we talk through 3 questions I usually suggest on-site teams should ask themselves for these steps. So exterior, what is the first thing you will want your future residents to see as they enter your community? Interior, how do you want your future residents to feel as they enter their prospective home? And then also experience, how can you be prepared for that tour, whether it's a scheduled tour or a walk-in, to really cater to each prospect?
And so, Brittany, in this mind, like, this is an everyday thing, right? So we have to essentially, in multifamily, prepare our soil every day, right? Because exterior things change, like how we want them to feel, like walk in the units and give them that experience.
Yes, absolutely. So maintenance, every day you're practicing general maintenance in terms of, in this example, the garden, but you want to make sure you're putting these things in place every day.
Yeah. So I got my soil in. Is this when I'm supposed to add my water now?
Yes. So apparently we're supposed to add some water to make this to be soil. So I've added my water, it's mixing together. And once this creates its soil, the next step is planting your seeds, right? I remember when we were thinking on this idea, and you mentioned that on-site teams, they won't really know what that initial contact will be like, or in this example, how the plant will grow first. So I think of this process as making the best first impression. This might be by phone or email or even in person. So we have these seeds here that we're going to use for the demonstration, which it seems pretty easy, right? For the gardening example, we actually will just plant this and put the seed in here. But for on-site teams, what actually makes a good first impression? And what I would think of is knowledge. So being an expert about your community, the availability, even the local area. And if there are questions you're unsure about, be willing to seek out information that will benefit the prospect. Also, understanding, empathize with the needs of the prospect. It really makes a huge impression when a prospect feels heard and understood. This could look like prospects with unique circumstances or those with very specific preferences. Also, being a problem solver. So don't just fill out a guest card. Listen, make it a conversation about their needs and your housing solutions. As a member of the leasing team, you are a problem solver and you're guiding prospects as they make a big decision on where they call home. And then lastly, personality. Make the conversation fun and personable. Remember, enthusiasm is contagious and searching for a home can be overwhelming, right? Sometimes the differentiator is the people. So who are the people or the team who will be a part of my resident experience?
Yeah. And I think it's so, as I toured across the country last year and into this year, like some of these things were missing, like the knowledge part of it. I asked a question about what time is the fitness center hours, and I was literally told, oh, it opens at 7 a.m. But I still to this day don't know what time it closes. So, like, is it just open from 7 a.m. to 7:01 a.m.? Like, when can
Right,
you
right.
use it? Like, so that's like super important. And I think it's so true about the understanding aspect of it. We do have to have that empathy. Like, housing is a human basic need. And I think sometimes we forget that and we just kind of are going through the motions because we deal with it. And then, problem solving is huge. Like, I'm needing a home, right? And I need you to help me kind of visualize what that looks like.
Yes.
And I think you hit it right on the head with personality. I used to tell people this all the time, like, I can train a lot of things. I can train the technical skills. What I cannot train is personality. So, speaking of personality and problem solving, now is this when I plant my seeds into the soil?
Yes. So we planted seeds into the soil. I think I put too many. It's okay. It's just a demonstration. So we planted our seeds into our soil. And the next step is going to be watering your seeds. So I have a shot glass of water.
Oh, I
Just gonna,
thought that was a shot glass of tequila. I thought we're doing tequila shots today.
I wish it was tequila, but I don't think that'll make the plant grow. We'll do that off camera.
Okay.
All right, so I have my seeds planted. We've now added the water into our soil. And this is going to be the consistent nurturing part or prospect follow ups on site with their prospects.
Hey, Brittany, I think you're an expert in, nurturing prospects, are you not?
Well, thank you. And I do consider myself, excuse me, an expert. I'm a customer success manager at NurtureBoss. And so consistent nurturing and follow ups, that's our superpower. And so as we talk about watering plants and how this relates to on site teams, I think relationship building and effective communication is really vital here. Excuse me. These are also things that I'm passionate about in my role as CSM to my clients. And so on the tech side, NurtureBoss is the best watering solution, right? To see that growth in this example conversion. But we offer automated communication to both prospects and residents, as well as more AI products and features that enhances the nurturing process. But there's people power, right? The human touch still very much matters. And so behind the scenes, I'm working with my clients who are property management companies to really help facilitate communication and marketing strategies to customize the needs or preferences of their on-site teams. It's really a collaborative effort with our teams and the management teams to manage their success. But while we nurture prospects on behalf of the on-site teams to help save them time, oftentimes there's that handoff as a part of our partnership. So that watering that the on-site teams will be doing is conducting tours or getting prospects across the finish line, getting those leases signed, right? And so this is also an opportunity for them to get to know their prospective residents and really establish a relationship that moves them along the lease cycle and into the resident journey as well.
So, hearing AI and having someone do your follow-ups for you, I mean, I get it. I can tell you that I have 101 tours, 56 only did a follow-up with me. So we need that, right? But there's still hesitation from the on-site teams about these kinds of things, right? Because they feel we're going to eventually take their jobs over and they're not going to be needed on site. So as a customer success manager, how do you kind of walk through with your clients, like to get out of that mindset?
Right. That's a really great point. So AI and technology really is collaborative resources, right? Partnering with the on-site teams. It isn't really meant to replace important human interactions. Multifamily, as you know, is very people-oriented and relationship-based. And so the on-site team still has a very crucial part in the lease journey for both prospects and residents. So, how I communicate this to my clients and my on site teams is that when I'm doing training, I really let them know what that partnership looks like, what we're doing on the back end, but how this is incorporated into their everyday workflow and how they are still important in this prospect journey and onto the resident journey.
Yeah, because I, tell people this all the time. I don't think that it's going to be AI for the rest of our lives and people are going to be eliminated and things like that. I think we're always going to have the human touch. Just like when it comes to gardening, there's always maintenance that has to be done from a human thing. It's not a set it and forget it.
Right.
And sometimes we have to do things outside of the norm and find different ways. And I know that in true gardening, a lot of it has to do with sunshine.
Yes.
And if you live in a place where there's not a lot of sunshine, you have to kind of make sunshine. And maybe that is looking at it and having a bright light in your home that is shining in to give it, that fake sense of sunshine. So I think that's the next part, right? Is at this point, we've got our seeds in, we got our water in, the soil's prepared. Next, it comes the sunshine. So how are we going to correlate the sunshine to the leasing effort?
Okay, that's a very good point. Sunshine is going to be very vital in the process and what this looks like on site. And I have a little sun to demonstrate this. What this looks like on site is that you're really marketing to highlight those attributes of the property. What really makes your property stand out? What is your competitive advantage? A lot of my properties, they're in competitive markets. So I work with them to highlight those unique amenities. Also, when I think about empathizing as a prospect myself, when I was looking for an apartment, then I was asking myself, where did I want to spend my money? I could spend it on space. I could spend it on location. I could spend it on, the amenities that the apartment came with. And that was what was important to me. And so, I think from a marketing standpoint, it's really important to highlight those things that help your property or your community stand out. Even the location, the area around you, I think that that's important to a lot of prospective renters as well.
Yeah. And I also think being yourself is part of that sunshine, right? Like
Oh,
there are
yeah.
times that you may not be the newest kid on the block anymore. You may not have the latest and greatest amenities, you might be a little bit older, but that doesn't stop people from renting from you, right? So if
Right.
you can find ways to effectively provide an experience in customer service that is top notch, that will make up for that. Just like I said earlier, you have to bring the light inside sometimes. So, obviously there are a lot of dark spots in my house. I don't get a lot of direct sunlight. So my husband is actually really like the gardener of the family. So he has all these lights that are like, shining in on plants and things like that to give them the natural light that they need. So he had to get that creativity. And I think sometimes we get into this mindset of, well, people don't want to rent here because, we were built in the 80s and there's new product up the street, or, we're a little bit, more expensive, or we have this or we have that. And we have it all in our head
Right.
that, but if we could just provide a service
Right.
that is better than our competitors, that gives us that advantage. And that starts with, responding to leads honestly.
Right. And knowing your demographic, because maybe not everyone is looking for the next lease up or the next, more modern community. There's a lot of families out there who, maybe still appreciate more traditional, older properties and the value that that brings, So I think it's important to know your demographic and know where you can shine, as you said earlier, and just highlight those attributes of your property.
Chadwell Supply is the proud sponsor of the Multifamily Media Network. Chadwell Supply is the largest privately owned MRO supply company and is committed to the multifamily industry. They deliver orders the next day from local warehouses across the United States. Chadwell Supply offers valuable resources such as maintenance training, a dedicated renovations team, and procurement platform assistance, ensuring multifamily properties operate more efficiently. Partnering with Chadwell Supply helps communities stand out in an increasingly competitive market. Learn more at chadwellsupply.com/difference.
Okay, so we've added some sunshine, we've got
Hmm.
the water, we got everything in, so far in the multifamily world, we make sure our curb appeal was great. We make sure we were providing a great experience when people walked in and responding to people. Now we're kind of ready for the next step, right? And what's the next step in our journey here, Brittany?
So this is the exciting part, right? Because you're starting to see the benefit of your work. And that's going to be where you see a sprout. You start seeing, where your efforts have benefited. And what this looks like on site is that tours are being scheduled, right? More foot traffic is coming through the door. And from an online perspective, maybe prospects are starting to engage more with the marketing you're sending. At NurtureBoss, we provide what we call hot lead reports, and it really highlights those prospects who are engaging. So, clicking on those call to actions, visiting the website, exploring the photo gallery. These are all signs you're seeing a sprout or the first evidence of growth in the lease journey.
Yeah, and I think, at this point, this is kind of make it or break it, right? Like if things are starting to sprout and you now neglect it because you think like it's happening, right? And you don't do anything else, then what happens to the flower? It usually dies because you forget to water it. There's no sunshine. There's all those things that I am guilty of doing all the time when it comes to plants. But that applies, right? So we see this interest. They're responding to us. They book the tour. And a lot of times what happens is they book the tour and then we just wait for them to come in. Like we don't do any outreach. We don't say, hey, we're excited for you. We might send them a reminder on the appointment. And then we're just like, okay, so they booked it. They're going to show, which often or not doesn't.
Right. And we definitely don't want to stunt the growth, right? We want to continue all of the same efforts that we were doing before to make sure we see, the full growth, the full prospect tour, the scheduling of the tour, them showing up, capturing that lease. You want to see it to fruition. So I think that's an important point you mentioned.
Yeah. So we see the first live coming out of the plant. It's now that, so that we're into the growth phase. And what does the growth phase look like in
Right. So that's going to be conversion. You want to, get that scheduled toward, get that tour scheduled. You also want to get that application filled out, right? But even better than that is getting the lease signed. And so we have a full grown plant to demonstrate this because we put a lot of hard work into our journey. And we've done all the things, steps 1 through 5 to get to this point. And we really want to make sure that lease gets signed at the end of the journey.
Well, I think you're right. I think where we forget in multifamily about growth is it becomes, oh, they submitted the application, they're automatically going to move in. And we don't think about, well, they submitted an application, but there's still a lot more work that goes into it. And there are some times that I feel like we have to work harder on the growth part than we do any other part, right? Like if we're not responsive, if we're not, getting them what they need in a timely manner, just because they applied here doesn't mean that they're going to not be applying at other places. I can't tell you how many times I hear, oh, well, I applied at 2 or 3 other places as well, just to see if I could get approved at all of them. And then I'm going to pick, because there are some markets where there isn't a big financial responsibility, right? In some states, you can't charge an admin fee until move-in or until the application's approved. So it might be $22, $25 to submit the application. That's not a lot in the grand scheme of things. So well, I submitted that and, Ronald didn't respond to me for 2 or 3 days. So I'm going to go look somewhere else.
That's a really great point, Ron. And to your point, like the options can be overwhelming, right? But in a good way, sort of, when you have so many different options and you can submit applications at multiple communities and see, which one you end up moving into. And really, in this growth phase, you're also helping to grow the relationship, right? So, how you keep interacting with that prospect is going to be how they view what their resident experience would eventually be. And that's an important part of this process as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think those are all great things. So, we got the growth, they've submitted the application, they've moved in. So let's talk about flourishing. What is flourishing in?
So flourishing in multifamily is going to be resident retention and renewals, right? At NurtureBoss, we always say, residents never stop being leads, right? In fact, why it's important to be consistent in every effort during every leasing phase from prospects to residents, because you want to start building that relationship early on. So you've done well cultivating the growth process, and the result of good nurturing is the flourishing, right? And so, what exactly is good nurturing? And in my opinion, it's taking parts of steps 1 and 6 and making it consistent through the resident journey now. So think of this as the maintenance of the relationship or the residential experience. So you wouldn't do all the work to grow the plant and then leave the plant to die, right? Well, you don't want to do this, on the resident side either. You would present this great prospect experience, and you wouldn't want them to just leave them hanging as a resident, right? You kind of mentioned that earlier. So some things to consider to help teams flourish, in my opinion, would be resident check-ins. So be proactive about checking in with your new residents. NurtureBoss offers resident outreach automations to continue the nurturing efforts after the lease is signed and the new resident moves in. So that's going to be really important to let them know you're excited, welcoming them to the community. And then also resident amenities. So highlight and remind your residents about all the unique amenities they can experience at your community. This means on site or even in the local area. So outside of the 4 walls of their home, residents want the full package living experience. So remind them that they have that just outside the door. And then resident events. So hosting resident events really brings the community together, and it brings a home feel to apartment living when you can engage with your neighbors. Also, resident surveys. We know residents like to feel heard, so make it a priority to listen. Sending out resident surveys really allows prospects to share their feedback and their experience. And also keep in mind that negative feedback is growth. So it's a growth opportunity, and positive feedback is an opportunity to really leverage their feedback with a Google or Yelp review. And then lastly, lease renewals. So please don't just send them renewal offers. That's not personable. So send them communication that reminds them not only that it's time to renew, but that you're excited for them to continue their stay at your community, and really remind them about the good old days, the benefits of them renewing their lease and extending their residency at your community.
Yeah, I think resident check-ins are super important for a couple things, right? Because here's the first thing. Most of the time, we only contact a resident if it is a negative, right? You have a past due balance, there's a lease violation, all of that. So actually, I worked for a company and I had a manager who joined us in where he had previous worked. They did this thing called Hug a Building. And so every week there was a different building on property where you were divided up among your staff, and the staff's job was to call the residents in that building. Not to say, hey, your rent's past due, not to say, hey, you have trash out. What it was is, hey, Brittany, how's it going? Do you have any work orders that I can put in for you? Are you liking your apartment? Any big weekend plans? Just to touch base with them, because then it was like, oh, they really do care about me. The only time you call them is for a negative experience, they're never going to want to talk to you because you don't care about them. You want something from them. So I thought like that was a genius idea, right? To do that.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, like they implemented this during COVID. So a lot of times people weren't seeing each other and they needed that interaction. So I think that's super important.
That is very important.
I think with resident amenities, after you move in, like you kind of forget what is offered because you've toured so many. So I always recommend that people during the move-in process, once they get settled in, when you do that 72-hour check-in or that week check-in, whatever your company says, how's it going? Do you like a new place? Things like that. You should then say, hey, I know you mentioned you are touring a couple other places. You're probably forgetting what amenities we have. Can we do amenity retour? Let me show you around, get you reacclimated with that. And along those lines with those resident events, if you have amenities that aren't used on the regular, I toured a property in Las Vegas and they had a karaoke room. No one used it. Why not do that, right? Why not doing a resident event in that space so then they're coming there? And it doesn't have to just be residents that are invited. You can invite prospects that are toured that week that might like, oh, I don't know if I want to live here or not. Let me just kind of, come in and see what it would be like and invite them into that.
Yes, I love that. I won't forget when I was actually hunting for my apartment, then I decided to do a second tour because I wanted to do check dimensions and all of that. And they so happened to be having a pool party, massive pool party with all this food, drinks, adult drinks, kid drinks, all the fun things. And they were like, well, you might as well just join us for the pool party. And I was like, you don't have to ask me twice. Like those interactions they really mattered to me because I already felt welcome there, even by the residents, the experience just really made a difference for me in my decisions. So I love, your suggestions too for using those amenities to host your resident events, reminding them of all the full benefits they have living there.
Yeah. And then I think the last thing with surveys for me, there's nothing more frustrating than to do the survey and not see results from it. And I'm not saying that you have to take my idea and you have to make it big, right? But if you're going to make a change based off surveys, when you're broadcasting this change, you should say, we conducted a survey of our residents. This was the feedback, and here's what we're doing to either improve or, here's what we're going to continue doing this based off what you're saying. Right. That way they know that you're listening and they're going to be more apt to provide you real data. They're going to be more apt to provide you real experiences and tell you the things that they're going to see it. If you don't do that and you don't make changes and you're just sending out the survey to send out the survey, what they're going to do is not fill it out. So you
Yeah.
might as well take the data that you have and make sure that it's known, like, hey, thank you so much for providing that feedback for us, whether it's positive or negative, based on the collective. And you can say the collective, right? Here was the common themes, and this is how we're going to address it moving forward. So I think those are the little things that would enhance the resident experience tenfold.
1,000%. It's so much opportunity for growth with surveys. I think, sometimes we get a little nervous about if there is negative feedback, but that also gives you an option to, make those improvements. And when they see that your efforts are to try to improve their resident experience, I think that they would appreciate that. And so I think that that's a really important part of resident retention as well.
And I also think it would help, on the negative review side, right? Like if you're proactively collecting the information, you're proactively working through it, and they can see that, I feel like they're going to give you a little bit more leadway to make those changes versus going straight to, Google and leaving you a 1-star review.
Right. That's a good point too, because it shows that you care. If you're being proactive about it, it shows that you care and that you want to listen. You have that desire to hear from them, and it creates that safe place for a resident to come to you the next time. So,
Yeah. Well, yeah. Brittany, I and don't think I'm going to be taking up gardening anytime soon. Like, I don't even know if this is going to grow. I will definitely let you know. These kind of plants are more like my style. Like, they don't require anything. I don't have to worry about someone finding, watering them when I'm out. But do you have any last thoughts on flourishing and
Yes. So, we talked about this whole process in a gardening demonstration, but truly, I think that all of these steps we outlined as far as flourishing and multifamily, they really stand true. And so, I would just encourage on-site teams to continue those efforts, from start to finish, because it really makes a huge difference in the prospect and resident journey moving forward.
Yeah. And I think there's times that things aren't going to go 100% according to plan, right? Sometimes you don't plant the seeds deep enough, or you don't water enough, or you overwater, it's too much sunshine, right? And you find these things and just know that that's not every prospect to me, right? It's going to be a combination. Some prospects you have to overwater and you have to over communicate and then there's some who just need a little bit of water and they're good to go. So like making sure that, if you mess up on something, own up to it and find a way to fix it and just make it better and continue. Don't let one little thing stop you from, achieving the success that you can achieve.
Right. And there's so much soil out there. There's so many seeds that can be planted. So, you make the improvements and you start again. So I think there's just so much opportunity to flourish in multifamily.
Yes. Well, Brittany, if people wanted to pick your brain on gardening or nurturing, where will they find you? How can they reach out to you?
So you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. My name is Brittany Piggins. And I work for NurtureBoss. So hit me up. I love to share my expertise and just network, with the multifamily. Like I said, it's relationship based, and I love establishing new relationships like I have with Ron now. So if you want to chat more about this, then hit me up on LinkedIn.
Well, perfect. So thank everyone for joining us today in Flourishing in Multifamily. I'm not for sure if I did my pot of soil right, but hopefully in a week or two, I will be able to update everyone. You have been listening to Rooms with Ronald, a podcast on all things leasing and marketing. And until next time, happy leasing, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you again to Chadwell Supply for sponsoring this episode. Chadwell Supply delivers unforgettable service with next-day delivery, online and in-person maintenance training, and procurement platform assistance to make ordering simpler. Visit www.chadwellsupply.com/difference to learn how Chadwell Supply will make your day